When you send a message to someone, the goal is not to send a message. The goal is for the message to be received, right? So if I have internet and the person on the other side does not have internet and I send the message anyway, and I'm like, fuck it, I just sent the message, it doesn't really matter because the message was not received. You might feel the relief if this message was, putting a weight on your shoulders and you just wanted to get it off your chest, then sure, maybe you felt that relief. But the purpose was not fulfilled because you sent the message, it was sent, but it was not delivered, it was not received. Much like if you order something from an online website and it gets shipped, but it never gets delivered, we can all attest to how unsatisfying that process is, or that situation is. The purpose of a message is for it to be received and not for it to be sent. Today, I'm not at home, and for the sake of being consistent and being true to the dedication and the commitment that I made to this podcast, I am going to make this episode while walking uphill, far, far away from home, without any of my regular equipment. So forgive me, the quality of this episode is not up to par with the rest of the episodes. So we always seem to get extremely defensive whenever we feel like someone is rejecting or objecting to something that might be natural to us or that we did naturally. And it seems that, or at least the way we perceive it, is that they are rejecting us entirely and commenting or critiquing our very being, our very existence. And so that might be why we feel resistance when someone speaks to us in that manner. So I want to talk about how can we actually approach someone with a critique or a criticism without triggering that defense response. Sometimes people just say things because they want to get it off their chest, and it might not necessarily hold any truth or any value, and they might just be overall negative people, and they like to make negative remarks and negative comments. But sometimes, even if they are that kind of person, sometimes what they say, if we neutrally analyze it, could actually hold some value that serves us better in the long run if we abide by it or if we apply it in our lives. So let's say, hypothetically, you are driving a car with people in it, and you're driving the car according to how you usually drive, and then someone comments on your driving, like, hey, your brakes are too sharp, or your turns are too fast, or you're going too fast, or you're driving aggressively. The first thing that comes to mind is just shut the fuck up and be a passenger and stop commenting on the driver's skills. Or just come and drive yourself if you really don't like the driving that much. I feel like a lot of us who have driven with people in the car may or may not have experienced this, where someone who may or may not be a driver, who may or may not be better than you at driving, give you a comment about your driving while you're driving them. It could be very triggering. And you're like, just, you know what? I'll park. You come and drive yourself if you're so against my driving skills. So there's two things. One, the message that someone is trying to get across, which in this case is, hey, I feel uncomfortable with your driving. That's the message. Two is the delivery, which is how they express that message. So if they say your driving sucks, or pull over, I'll drive, or I don't feel safe, it all conveys the same message. So that's the delivery. And three is how you analyze those words, and then in turn, probably how you react to them. So let's address these things. First thing I want to talk about is, and I think the most important, is the delivery. I think as humans, we're always in a constant state of trying to convince someone of something. Whether that is, we're trying to make friends, you're trying to sell yourself as a good person or a person who is compatible with someone else. Whether you're trying to get a job, you're trying to sell yourself as the right person for the job. Whether you are trying to actually sell something and you're trying to convince people why they should or why they must buy the thing that you are offering. There's so many things that we do on a daily basis. It's just a bunch of interactions and transactions. And so, with that in mind, delivery is extremely important. If you look at ads that have ever convinced you of buying anything in the past, we're probably selling shitty products. And then maybe once you bought it, you realize it wasn't what you thought it was, or you realize, oh shit, I just fell for the marketing and I didn't actually need that. And so that speaks volumes for how important delivery is when it comes to trying to sell anything, yourself or a product or an idea or anything else. So delivery is very important, and we need to discuss that. When we talk about intellectual things or mental things, the delivery of a message means that the other person was able to receive it and think about it and process it in a way that allows them to actually understand the intention and understand the core of the message that you were trying to send in a way that they can accept. And so when we tell people things that might be critical of their behaviors or their attitudes, we understand inherently that these things come with a lot of resistance. And so it's going to be a difficult challenge to package this message in a way that the other person is not going to immediately reject, because that is going to be their immediate response to it. Now, obviously, everyone is different. And so this package that we put the message in is going to have to be different for pretty much everyone. People that we know better, we can cater the delivery to, and we can understand how they respond to certain things and what triggers them and what makes them more open and what closes them up. And so we're more likely to speak to them in a manner that they will respond well to. However, people that we don't know as well, we don't know how they react to things. And we could think that speaking to them in a certain way should be fine, but we don't understand the context that they're living in, their experiences, the people that they know, the person who they are. And so they might react entirely different to how we anticipated. This is not to say that it's a hopeless case, but it's something to keep in mind. There are neutral ways to talk to people that might require more energy from the person delivering the message, but increases the chances of the message being well delivered and well received. So humans are not binary. We're not 0 and 1 in the way that a message can be. So if I say your driving sucks, it can be binary, and I could say it as straightforward as possible, but most people will see it as rude. So if I say your driving sucks, most people are just not going to react well to that because it feels negative, although it might be correct. However, there are ways that we can say things while taking people's feelings and emotions and individuality into consideration. No one is expected to understand everyone in the universe and cater everything to everyone. But basic human psychology is pretty basic. And we know that people respond to certain things better than they do to others. So let's give a few examples of how we can deliver the message of how someone's driving makes us feel uncomfortable in a way that will allow them to reflect on their driving and then say, okay, I see where and why I should improve, and I'll work on that. You know, when you package an item for delivery, for shipment, you don't just throw it in the box, right? The box is the outward appearance, or you could even say the gift wrap is an outward appearance. The box is the next layer, and then you have bubble wrap to protect it, and then you have the item itself, and then you could potentially have more wrapping inside of the item to protect it from the inside. So there's a lot of things that go into making sure that the delivery or the shipment was delivered safely. So in the same manner, when speaking, when conveying a message, we could do the exact same thing. And like I said, this could be a lot more exhausting for the person delivering the message, but could be very essential, because at the end of the day, if the message is not received, then you didn't really do anything and we didn't really get anywhere. And you just got something off your chest and possibly even created a hostile environment for you and for the person that you were trying to communicate with. So you can start by acknowledging any effort from their side. So instead of just outright saying, hey person, your driving sucks, we could say something like, hey, this was a nice ride, or thank you for driving us. You can start by giving positive affirmation for something that they actually did well. Thank you for getting us there safe, or thank you for being mindful of the road around you, or thank you for asking us if we wanted to stop for breaks. These are all things that you could bring up. No one is all bad. No one is all good. So there will always be something that we can bring up that is positive. And it's always best practice to start with these things before we say any kind of criticism, because it opens the person up and it makes them feel like you are on their side. We're one team already. By saying something so simple, you're already dramatically increasing the chances of them listening to what you have to say next. So gratitude or appreciation, positive affirmation, and acknowledging efforts to begin with. And then we can start talking about the criticism itself. Even that needs to be said in a way that is not triggering and is not attacking, because even though you open someone up, they can still close very quickly. So you got to be very careful. So let's say, but if I may, see that you don't just jump right into it. You could say sometimes it takes a little bit of, not self-deprecation, but a little bit of humility when discussing something like that. You can say, but if I may, or if I'm not overstepping, or I hope this isn't triggering, or I hope this isn't negative, or I'm saying this in the most loving way possible, or in the best way possible, or with the best intention. I think if we went a little bit slower, I would have felt a little safe. So let's just break this down a little bit. First of all, you start by prefacing the critique itself with establishing that it's not intended in any way to attack the person. This makes them feel more at ease with what's about to come, but also prepares them that there's something coming, but it's coming from a good place. It's not coming because you think you're better than them, or because you think you could do better, or because you think they're bad. It's coming from a positive place. And so that already prepares them for something that's coming, but in a positive way. And they don't feel like you're establishing a hierarchy, or that you're establishing some kind of dominance over them. So that is one thing. The second thing is, when you say the critique itself, you don't say it as a matter of fact. You could say it as a matter of I think, or I believe, or I feel, because these are not things that make you sound like an arrogant fuck, like a douchebag who just thinks they know, who think they see reality as it is and everyone else doesn't. Like you're somehow above them, or that you're somehow more observant, or more aware, or more responsible. So you could actually tell them that this is how you feel, or what you believe, or what you think, which makes it sound like it's just your personal experience, which no one can deny you. This is your personal experience. And no one can be mad about your personal experience, because it's just how you felt. And so you bring it in a way that this is how I felt. And don't make things so absolute. So that's another thing. When you make things so absolute and you say, we drove too fast, or you were always driving fast, or you were always over the speed limit. These are absolute statements. So we can make things more realistic by saying, I felt like sometimes we were going a little over the speed limit, and it made me feel a little uncomfortable. So don't be absolute. Be realistic. Because the bigger the statement, the bigger the accusation is what it feels like. So you could minimize it. So you could say, I felt that sometimes we were going a little over the speed limit, and I felt a little unsafe when that happened. And then finally, you can close off your critique, or your feedback, or your criticism by saying that you know that the other person wasn't doing it on purpose. You know that the other person was trying to be safe, was trying to be aware, and that none of this is their fault, as in they were conspiring against you in some way, or as in they were actively trying to make you feel unsafe. So it's always good to then end your statement with something positive about the person, saying that, again, they are not a bad person, and that you acknowledge that, and that in no way you think they were unaware of it or doing it on purpose, but you're just bringing it to their attention. In case we're in the same environment again, they can keep that into consideration. In the end, it can always help to, again, acknowledge the person's efforts and acknowledge things that were positive that they did, maybe even bring out other things that they did positively, or just reassure the same things. At the end of the day, like I said, This is more exhausting for like the person who is delivering the message, but I guarantee you it's going to get the message across much more smoothly and much more efficiently and much more effectively. And it's just going to make sure that the environment is constructive as opposed to destructive. And it minimizes the room that someone has to overthink something you said and plant an intention that wasn't there, or put words in your mouth and then react negatively to the things that you said. Because if that happens, then all of this was for nothing, and we just created a hostile or a negative environment for no reason whatsoever. So it's in your benefit and in their benefit and in everyone's benefit to take all of this into consideration. It takes take the extra time, take the extra effort, take the extra words to say these things in order to assure that the outcome that you wanted is there. Now, I want to talk about the next thing, which is how we should react if someone speaks to us without all of these precautionary measures. But I feel like I've already taken too much time filming this, so I might just create this into a second episode, because this is kind of a dense topic and something that we could all relate to, and it happens to us, I think, regularly on a regular basis. So I'd like to add more emphasis on it, but maybe at another time, so that this episode is not too dense. So let's just call this How to Deliver a Message Part 1. And then we'll just make the second video about, or the second episode about, how to receive a message Part 2. And we'll go from there. So thank you so much for watching or listening to The Social Condom. And I'm sorry about the quality of this episode. I didn't think I was going to be filming this week, but I figured for the sake of commitment and dedication, I should do it. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next Monday.